that is like a lot of people think that existence of uh, basic minimum wage is actually going to like substantially benefit everyone, and the companies are going to prosper, and individuals who are workers are suddenly going to be in a better position. Is it true? Is it not true? What are the outcomes of it? Read along the same lines. Uh, a lot of debates focus around the idea of what major sporting events look like. What is the economics of Olympics, social mobilization events such as Paralympics? What is the economics behind them? Is it really helping them? Is it not helping them? What is behavioral economics related to them? You can read. Read on what consumerism looks like. What is the idea of advertisement and consumerism? A lot of advertisements have psychological interference, things along the same line of how nudges used to work, which means one of the common methods of how the psychological interference works in matters of advertisement is that there will be look. So look, I'll give you an example. In default explanation of what society looks like, every emoji that you used to see on your WhatsApp used to include the representation of family, had a man, a woman, and a kid, which could be male, female, either ways. So there was an implicit creation of gender binary when these companies did not engage in implicitly making these WhatsApp groups, like these WhatsApp emojis, have several other options to it. The debate in these scenarios lie: is it good for you to engage in liberal propaganda? Like a lot of people can't like believe it to be liberal propaganda because a lot of individuals think that there is no such thing as third gender, and like there are certain discriminations, like different opinions regarding it. So on the same lines, do you think that the psychological interference of individuals who think that there is no such third gender is against their belief system, or you're actually interfering within their own psychological footprint? Is it something that you should do as a left-leaning party or a left-leaning movement, or is it something that you shouldn't do? Things along the same lines, psychological interference of consumerism and advertisement is something that you should do. Then, okay, we'll leave out this for international relations debate. Major corporations and human rights abuses. One of the most common debates here starts is how Amazon is creating below good working conditions for a lot of individuals that uh, a lot of individuals within Amazon warehouses are, even though they are being given with basic minimum wage, are subjected to below average working conditions, not giving them sufficient hours of work, like over making them overwork, not giving them sufficient wage leaves, and things along the same lines. What is the obligation that multinational corporations owe to these human right, like to these laborers that they are working for? If they don't engage in such things, does it create an economically unviable company? So the most greatest invention that Uber did, this is one of the common jokes, is was to create human rights violation, is by creating gig economy, what is known as a gig economy, that you hire individuals as independent contractors instead of employees. So Zomato or Uber hires individuals who are independent contractors and not as Zomato employees. So it allows them to abuse their human rights, which means that not give them minimum wage, take extensively more from them that they're basically making, and things along the similar lines. Read on two things: first, gig economy; second, economies of scale. Then we talk about next is too big to fall banks and too big to fall
So
companies.
could you please repeat, your voice broke?
Okay,
Okay.
what part of okay, gig economy. So one of the common ideas regarding the same issue is that gig economy is something which is in which there is independent contractors instead of employees, which means that a lot of people who are actually working for them are not individuals who are shown to be employees of Zomato, which allows them to take more money from them in part of them working, allow them almost no leave. If they leave, they are on their own risk, provide them no health insurance or health benefits, provide them with lesser than minimum working wage, and things along the same ideas. Is it something necessary for, is what is more necessary? Is it necessary for us to have Zomato service in general, or is it more necessary for us to prevent human right violation and deterioration of human rights standards? What do we decide as a society is something that becomes a matter of debate within common parallels. Next, what we have is, does that answer your question? Like, I hope this is all that I spoke after that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next is too big to fall banks. These are the kinds of debates that you contemporarily see, that look, Google and Facebook are becoming too big and therefore it's time to break them up. They shouldn't exist in the status quo because they are against antitrust ideas and they engage in antitrust violations or competitive violations. So it's good to put them off. Things along the same lines. Okay. Revolution. Okay. Also read about what fast fashion is. Is fast fashion economically viable considering the amount of human rights violation that it engages in? Fast fashion looks like there is extensively cheaper jeans which has been created by individuals working in sweatshops within Bangladesh, creating extensively low priced clothes. Is it something that you, as an individual living in a first world country, should boycott fast fashion because it represents plunder, it represents violation of human rights, things along the same idea? What is the economics of it? One of the common debates is high taxes on rich, cut off the rich. This is something which one of the most common debates that have happened. Wealth tax was introduced by I think Elizabeth Warren in US Senate. So read how taxes on wealth is actually going to help them or is it not going to help them? Is tax break something which is helping individuals or is it like putting them on a back seat? How do tax affect different sectors of society and different sectors of individuals? Like one of the common ideas is that individuals who are poor or who are worse off within society pay more tax on the same $100 compared to individuals who are richer. The reason is because both of these individuals have different spending capacities. So taxation system within US works on their spending capacities and not on how much money they are actually supposed to pay for tax. Which means per $100, a poor individual pays I think $23 of tax. However, a richer individuals on those $100 pay $16 of tax. So how this tax system in general creates social inequities and social problems. And one of the common ideas that I could give you is that US taxation system has a 3000 or 2000 word book or taxation law. Only 2 pages explain what taxation is, and the rest to like 1990 pages, 98 pages are saying what tax exemption looks like for a lot of individuals. So it allows a lot of rich people to get off without paying any taxes. Rich companies such as Amazon, Twitter, Apple pay almost zero taxes. Then we talk about IMF and World Bank. Read how their loan conditionality works, how it destroys a lot of countries, how it doesn't. We'll get to them. Unpaid internship culture and its implication. Does unpaid internship specifically set back a lot of individuals who are structurally disenfranchised? Because the idea of unpaid internship is vastly privileged in nature, that you have to spend extensive amount of money living out of your home on your own, paying on every front on your independent pockets. And usually, since unpaid internships usually lead to jobs, which means that individuals who are coming from privileged and well-off backgrounds are actually individuals who are able to get these jobs first. So does this create certain amount of unequal society in general? Because unpaid internships is a common factor in almost every sector. Things such as law, as we all have seen, things such as journalism, things such as um, doctorate, like doctor, like a medical profession, because a lot of individuals are not able to support their own existence and therefore talents gets deprioritized compared to being privileged in the first place. Replacement of labor by artificial intelligence and robotics is something that you should read about. Does it really break certain amount of economical problems and things along the same lines? Next is something that it do people of okay, we'll keep this for later. Public and private schools is something that you should read upon. Mm, 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 mm. Corporate tax phased right now. Okay. Um, Prevention of gentrification is something that becomes a common debating topic. So one of the ideas of gentrifications in earlier part of society during 70s and 80s were redlining. Redlining was something that individuals who are blacks and individuals who are belonging to well tax and real estate. Yeah, yeah, depends on you. So one of the problems of redlining was that if you are an individual who is basically black or who's basically from well like minority community within America, the probability of you getting your house within a well-off community is much higher than the probability of you getting your house within a minority community. The fuck? Where did I get cut off? Um, Hello. Am I audible?
Probability of you getting a house.
Okay. So if you are an individual who is like, I'll explain redlining in short. So this was something as a official program for like for federal offices, government sponsored offices in America. One is redlining, other is Jim Crow, Jim Crow, JIMCROW. read about them. How does it affect? Redlining was that if you're a black individual living in America, you couldn't get home or you couldn't get any kind of social support structures in areas which are posh or areas which are financially viable, which have a lot of shops, because they think that blacks individuals who are basically inferior in nature, so they shouldn't exist there because they're completely low skilled. So it's better to have white individuals who are highly skilled live in those areas. Ideas of redlining also introduced is when you mortgage your house, there is comparatively a lesser value given to you if you are a black individual, which means that if a house costs $100,000, you as if you go for mortgage, you will be paid $75,000, compared to if a white individual goes, he will get $100,000, which is the right price of mortgage. So these amount of like economical discrimination that has happened within America has set back or has gentrified a lot of localities. This is the reason why a lot of minority communities and blacks who live within America live in cities which are on the outskirts of metropolitan cities. This is the reason why their grandparents and their parents were poor in the first place, because they were denied a lot of economic opportunities of living in well-off economic areas by their ancestors and by the racist government that existed. This is the reason why a lot of black individuals who are now being born within these ghettoized localities have access to worse of education, worse of healthcare, and worse of employment opportunities, is the reason why there is a vicious cycle of poverty that continues for these individuals. So these are the kinds of ideas that you will read about when you read about the effects of redlining and Jim Crow, why a lot of minority communities will always be worse off unless and until they're like this is one of the reasons why you can argue the notions of why reservation should exist, that there was a structural disenfranchisement that happened. So the reason why a lot of Dalits within India, like like people think that the idea of uh, discrimination on basis of where of your caste is a thing of past. It's not. The repercussions of economic disenfranchisement is seen today, because since their families are not well off, because their families were denied opportunities to work in factories, in any kind of good jobs, is the reason that they cannot put their children to better schools to get better education. The ideas on the similar principles can be used in reservation debates as well. Remember to run them. Read how recession works, what is the characterization of recession looks like, and read about how startup culture is. The idea of startup culture is that there is extensive amount of glorification of startup culture, that media basically focuses on the success that you see within startup cultures, that look, Mark Zuckerberg is who created startup, is somebody that you should idolize. And these kinds of media narratives usually drown out the amount of risk that startup culture ensues, that within a saturated market there is no such thing which is known as a unique startups. There is different variation of the same startup in the first place, which means that if you're talking about food delivery startup today, you cannot take up Zomato and Uber Eats and compare them to each other. Startups, because almost every industry has some giant in it, so startups are just variations and more nuanced variations of what Zomato is, a nuanced variation of what Uber Eats is. So there is no unique idea, so a lot of individuals enter into startup culture thinking that they're doing something good because media has said that, look, Zomato is a good startup, Facebook is a good startup, so do so it's going to help you. So a lot of individuals crash, a lot of youth gets destroyed, like a lot of individuals take risky loans because of this, and what kind of activities ensues is something that you should do. So lastly is something that you should read upon is what cashless and cash economies look like. What are the advantages of engaging in complete cashless economy? What is the usage of physical dollar or a physical rupee is this debate is not about partially cashless and partially cash economy. It's about complete cash and complete cashless economy. How does minorities get affected by lack of technology, and how do they get left behind? Are the similar ideas that happen? Any questions so far? We're done with our session. I'll just show you what my matter file looks like, and we'll wrap up. Can you guys hear me? Just expect.
Oh, yes, we can. No questions.
Oh, okay, cool, perfect. Let me just share the screen. Abhyuday, make me the host.
Yeah, just a second.
Was I audible for the most part of it? Because like my internet seems
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be
you
unable
were
to.
audible for most part of it.
Okay, cool. Just a second. There it is. Right. So one of the common things that we see within debating. Achha, can you guys hear me right? So basically, what I'm going to tell you is to create matter files. Matter files are files, things such as I write a motion down. This motion says that this house regrets commercialization of feminism. What are the outbursts of in for debate? What are the things that I need to remember when we are in any debate when I'm witnessing a theme of commercialization of feminism? What are the outskirts of it? What are the implications of it? And I put the relevant links below it. Next, I go up to what is feminism and capitalism looks like, and on
Sir,
the
you were
similar
not
idea.
audible.
Okay, am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm restarting. So how you make matter files is you take up a specific motion, you put it there, and you write everything regarding that motion that you need to retain as an important piece of knowledge. This could be like important, how do I say, memory anecdotes for me specifically. Like since I think that never prepares like it never prepares advocates of feminism, but rather outliers and half-informed woke crowd. Because commercialization of feminism looks like that if you are a feminist, you need to buy a T-shirt that says "I am feminist." So it creates certain amount of problematic narratives and prevents any kind of informative discourse regarding feminism in general. So these kinds of ideas, write down small when you read these articles, write down small links or small ideas regarding it in your own file. How to create these files? These files are created on my email, on which I have a Google Doc. These Google Docs are like they save immediately, so it's far easier and it's far easier to control. Like it's less hassle compared to like the offline Microsoft Words in general. And on the same lines, like have different, I'll send you a motion bank, have different have different motion banks, like take up different motions and write about them. Remember to create certain amount of segmentation and a mark and outline of what you think is something that you should always remember. This is something, if you have it on your laptop, is going to help you throughout GI. Because GI, since it's online, you can engage in your own matter files. And if you have already done that, it's far easier for you to like cheat and directly open up internet and just type out, look, what is commercialization of feminism. So now you have to read everything in it. So it's far easier. However, in offline debating, you'll have to carry a printout version of these. You won't be able to use electronic versions of them, and things along the same line. Are there any more questions regarding matter files, or do you guys understand what matter files look like and what's its use? Just anybody can.
It's clear, sir.
Okay. So I'll send you guys. I'll send you guys. I think a feminism motion bank. I'll send you guys. I think a pop culture motion bank. The reason why I'll be doing this is because pop culture and feminist debates and social justice debates are the most common debates in all of debating, on all of debate land. You'll face them every day in matters of intersectionality. You can almost apply them in every sector. So the better knowledge that you have, like this is, I think, thought was the best way for you to understand, or the best, like the most developmental part of creating debate knowledge, where you can start off with. So don't worry about it. I'll send you guys this link and start preparing matter files as much as you can. There is no pressure, but like if you guys want to do better in GI or to improve as debaters in the longer run, this is something which is going to like immensely help you. Anything more that you guys think, or any feedback regarding this session? It became too much of a monologue, or anything like you guys want to learn in later sessions? This could be anything regarding argumentations or case prep or anything. Let me know right now so I could think of scheduling it in near future.
So can we have international relations for the next session?
Cool. We'll have international relations for the next session.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Cool. So thank you guys. I'll send you over the motion bank soon. Thank you for joining in. Bye bye.
Tejas, sir, could you,
Bye bye.
Tejas,
हाँ
hello.
bro.
Could you stay for a minute?
हाँ बताओ ना.
Right. So I was asking, so recently, I don't know if this can come in debates, but there is a good chance it will in some of the upcoming debates. is that a lot of football associations have started playing equal weights to the both the male and the female teams. That is the National Football Association, like Brazil and a lot of other countries. So this, you remember this fight started when when US women team, the team
Captain
took
spoke
the
about,
FA to court. But in that, so I was always like, I don't know how to approach this, because the fact is that in the US case, it was that the US women team was significantly generating more revenue than the men's team, and yet wasn't getting paid the same. So
yeah.
yeah, but in the that was a singular case for the US women's team, not for any other team. Whereas these all of the other teams that have been given the same wage or the equal wage currently in all of these FAs, these do not bring in even close to the same revenue, right? So how to approach this problem would, like, there is a big question of the what revenue which sport brings, and accordingly being paid on the same line. But there also exists that concept that the very point that you get an equal wage is more lucrative for other sportswomen to start in the same sport. So how do you take such a debate? Because it's really I personally feel it's very like it's clashing a lot between like the revenue question and how do I put it, positive action question.
Okay. So the most common, like, Apida, could you put off your mic? Like, it's resonating.
Yeah.
So one of the most common problems that arise within these debates is that people think that your salary is direct, like your salary. Look, so this debate cannot happen. Okay, like, let's segregate a lot of things. Firstly, let's understand what it looks like within national sport teams and how it looks like within club sports teams, because these are two different areas wherein economics will work in two different metrics. So when you talk about national work sports or you talk about national teams creation, the idea that most amount of money that is poured into a lot of sports does not depend upon the amount of revenue that these sports create, which means that in countries such as India, the amount of money that boxing generates is far less than the amount of money that India puts into boxing. But it's far less compared to the amount of money that India puts into creating infrastructure for gymnastics. The point here remains is that the notion of social welfare is something which is prioritized by countries when creating a salary structure for their own players. The point in these debates that you need to prove is that there is certain amount of positive outcome or change of behavior of these individuals who are pursuing these sports within these own spaces. The problem that opposition can never claim is that there is a difference between the amount of revenues that they generate, uh, between the revenues that they generate and the revenues that you get directly to determine their salary, is because you introduce the idea of how social welfare should work. That the obligation on the part of government is to not seek revenue in social welfare actions. You get my idea? A lot of countries don't really need to think, like, India makes enough money to give good enough salary to both men and women football players. There will be no dent, almost no dent, on part of India's GDP when that happens. That's like comparing almost to nothing. So the point here remains is that the only problem or the only hurdle that will come across this line is how does this bill gets propagated through parliament or through tertiary resources, and this debates become highly undebatable in national fronts, because one side can always claim that the idea of social welfare is always non-revenue centric, which means
Yeah,
in
I
like
get
any
that,
country
but
that
yeah, that's the point. So if whenever we take national affairs, it becomes really like impenetrable to say that they shouldn't take this action in the sense to promote more infrastructure. But one of the points still remains that even football associations do earn out of the TV revenue, right? So even the Indian FA or any FA will get a lot of money for their own infrastructure investment by the sense of TV rights and sponsorship rights, right? So in that case, the revenue point can be generated, I feel, because the question doesn't become of whether it is being invested in the sport or not. The equality part that they should be invested on the same level when see, promoting a specific sport by giving a better or a more legitimate salary to those women versus giving it the same salary that more sponsors, like a more revenue generating team is getting in. How do you tackle that part? Because the revenue part will come in because even the FAs earn from that sponsorship money, and their own budget also runs from those sponsorship money. And this is why they seek all of those ties and partnerships that only in the current scenario, a lot of it can be only pulled by male players. So how, like, yeah, that.
Mhm. So we have like pretty less time. We have like less than 10 minutes to wrap up this shit. So here's the thing. Ideas of social welfare do exist, but when you make this debate that opposition comes up with the idea that look, revenue is important because they eventually earn from them, there is certain money which is invested in it. So the idea of incentivization of more people entering within it when there is no cap of the amount of salary that you earn is something which is better off, which means that there is more rewarding structure that exists on individuals who are making more money. So if your team is doing exceptionally well on an international level, is the reason, like if women football starts doing exceptionally well on international level, their salary will dramatically go up because they're now generating more revenues on not just national front but on international front when they compete in international tournaments. So the idea that you can exponentially increase your own worth and your own salary, and your salary cap is not decided by governments as a prerequisite, serves as a good enough incentive for these people to directly engage in better, how do I say, to make that sport a better place to play, right? On the other hand, you have to prove on the opposition the idea of social welfare. So you say that the idea of social welfare is more fulfilled in opposition's world, wherein competition is artificially induced by government by paying them for the higher performance that they do. Did you get my idea?
Yeah, so they're essentially incentivizing a better participation or a better
Sporting culture. Yes. Because since there is no cap on it, like you can always push your limits to it. So this is something like I would say as a bad debate would happen on national sports, a good debate regarding the same would happen on club sports, wherein revenue is more tangentially linked to those clubs and those salaries. Like the amount of money that Manchester United makes is directly dependent upon the jersey that it sells and people that come to those stands. It has no good incentive to promote football to pay them more, right? The reason why they can pay more is because they can generate more from those players.
Yeah,
uh, this this debate will happen most probably um, on a club level debate. So remember, like this, these are the most basic argumentation that can happen. I think one of the major things that have happened regarding sports development in economics is how Newcastle was being overtaken by Saudi companies. Remember how club ownership of a foreign firm or a foreign government, foreign agency can also create certain amount of how do I say implications regarding national interests. Manchester City being owned by a lot of Saudis, is it something good? Is it something bad? Should you sell your firm off? Should you sell your club off just because it is like economically doing worse off to foreign investors? And will these foreign investors, when they have control upon the operations of your club, will look forward to the best interest of these clubs in the first place? These are the kinds of things that you could trade upon. I think have been a recent development in
yeah,
sports
got
economics.
it, got it.
Cool.
That's all. That's all from my side.
If there's anything else, or I should scoot off.
Yeah, I'll end the meeting. I don't think there are a lot of participants left.
Perfect. Bye bye. Bye, guys.